The Brooks Institute is a U.S.-based national think tank pursuing a paradigm shift in human responsibility toward and value of non-human animals by advancing animal law, animal policy, and related interdisciplinary studies. The uniqueness of the Brooks Institute is its independence and capacity to create new intelligence and collaborations. We say for us, failure is not trying something new and innovative. In May 2019, the Brooks Institute Scholars Committee hosted the Animal and Legal Policy Studies Summit to convene top scholars and thinkers in animal law, animal policy, and animal studies from intersectional disciplines. The primary goal was to stimulate engaged dialogue and creative thinking in order to generate big and bold ideas about where the future of animal studies, animal law, and animal policy ought to be headed. What follows are some of the thoughts gathered at the 2019 Animal and Legal Policy Studies Summit.
The way I view this summit and what's going to come out of it is more bringing people together to sort of exchange ideas and helping identify what the problems are, helping identify which areas could use more scholarly attention or advocacy attention, really helping grow the field and showing that there is a great value to having sort of those in academia turn their sort of attention and intellectual might to addressing these issues.
Some scholars frame their conversations with a fundamental question: who are animals?
I would say, to me, animals are kin. And I think that we don't have a right to use them. But given that we are here with them and we share space with them, we have so much to learn about just the world and life from them. And I think that they have many messages to give us and many things to teach us.
At one level, that should be kind of obvious, that we need to know how animals want to relate to us. To my mind, it kind of really should be the first question in animal ethics, is how do they want to relate to us? But of course, there's multiple challenges involved. One is, how do we provide different options? How do we decide what range of options we would be providing for animals? But then there's the interpretive question. Even if you provide these options, how do you know what animals are telling us?
From a Christian theological understanding, I understand myself as a creature. And that means I'm a creature among creatures. And so animals to me are my fellow creatures of God, present in a Christian faith tradition as beings created by God and living sustained by God. And so that fundamental insight of seeing ourselves as humans as alongside fellow creatures seems to me to be a really fundamental part of good Christian thinking.
Other scholars structured their ideas about animals as they relate to human, legal, and economic systems.
But if you take the premise that we need to protect life on the planet, then there are a whole series of things that we know we need to be doing quite differently. And thinking about a systematic approach to addressing the policy and legal framework that would help us get there, I think is a really rich conversation.
In my thinking, the biggest questions that are facing us now are about whether the existing structures are sufficient to accommodate the kinds of changes that are needed to make this world a more just place. Can justice be achieved under the current system of capitalism? Can justice be achieved under a current system in which every square inch of the globe is divided into these entities called states that claim a monopoly on the use of violence?
We have an economic system that depends on the exploitation of animals in ways that is very unjust in a variety of ways. So the question that I'm interested in is, how can we use law and regulation to change that?
It's the beginning of a recognition of the sacredness of all life and the ways in which these systems that we're creating, again, quite removed from individual agency. The systems are, well, they're indefensible.
But I'd say there's even a deeper, more fundamental question in international animal law, which is, how do we develop a truly universal system of international animal law where shared norms can kind of percolate up from different countries and cultures around some set of general norms and expectations.
Another perspective scholars spoke to is the social, psychological, and emotional connection between animals and humans.
How can we change the way people view animals? I mean, how can we persuade people to care about animals is really the key issue.
One new idea that social psychologists are working on is this notion of emotional dissonance between, on the one hand, eating meat, which most people do, and on the other hand, having high regard for animals, caring about their welfare, caring about their suffering, which most people also do.
So empathy is something I believe that is inherent in us if we are ourselves given empathy growing up, and that it's critical to develop a trans-species ethic for empathy so that whether it's the individual animal suffering that people respond to or whether it's hearing of something like species decline statistics, people will be motivated to produce behavioral change in their own selves and then to advocate for that change.
One of the things that I'm excited about working on is what I'm calling carceral logics. And carceral logics aren't simply about captivity and incarceration. It's about the way we think about those that become disposable in our society. Animals are captives and are sort of subjects of carceral logics.
By and large, we tend to think of racism as a problem, sexism as a problem, and we don't so much think of animals as part of it. But increasingly, the research is showing this ability to point to someone else that is other, that is lesser, contributes to things like genocide, contributes to things like factory farming.
But I think the most important area is really around how change happens and how in a particular situation and in a particular context can we make change. If we do things right, we will have some kind of common basis of understanding that can help all of us on this diverse range of issues.
I tend to think things like literature, perspectives from history and religion, the arts in general, kind of paradigm shifts in the way we see society that may come from social movements can be internal to our ability to see animals and human-animal relations in the way that we need to. And when we talk about big, hard, strategic, political, methodological questions, I think that's helpful to bear in mind.
In order for people to have optimum human health, that it requires the well-being of other animals and the environment. When we're seeing damage done to ourselves as a consequence of being cruel or callous or harming other living systems, I think that's a very important question for us to look at and provide real data. Because if it is, then I think it gives us reasons to respond to these issues, in a much more comprehensive way, to resource them properly and to take them seriously as research questions.
For more Brooks Institute resources, visit theBrooksinstitute.org.